Hello, Kirby again, as we launch into the 12th episode of Zoo Crew Revue, where we will be reviewing the 11th issue of Captain Carrot and His Amazing Zoo Crew, and pair with the classic Looney Tunes short, Bye Bye Bluebeard. I can't believe I finally made it to the back half of the original series. I figured I would have flamed out by now, or not enough people would have been interested, but response has been great over this last year, so thank you all very much. It's greatly appreciated. Let's get started with our cover, penciled and inked by Scott Shaw. But unfortunately, I have to say, art-wise, this is probably Shaw's weakest cover to date, showing Pig Iron and the Wuz-Wolf engaged in combat against a largely black background, with the heads of the rest of the zoo crew floating above watching. And really, just any background would have really helped this cover. Luckily, it's at least partially saved by the cover copy and the speech balloons. This is it. The scintillating, super spectacular showdown at the DC Corral. Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew versus the weirdly wondrous Wuz-Wolf. As Pig Iron responds to all of that, saying, "So how come them two get top billing? And it's Pig Iron what does all the work." So let's begin with our pertinent data for the issue. We have a cover date of January 1983, an on-sale date of October 28th, 1982. Our main story is plotted and edited by Roy Thomas, scripted by E. Nelson Bridwell, penciled by Stan Goldberg, inked by Al Gordon, lettered by Cary Spiegel, and colored by Thomas J. Zucco. I want to say that since our last episode, I have started to read a bunch of 1,000-page Archie comics collections and discovered that Stan Goldberg was a regular artist for those books, which now makes total sense why he was brought in to help fill in, because his cartoonish style was already proven throughout all those Archie comics. Our main story, The Wuz-Wolf's Night to Howl, opens with a really great splash page showing 5 of the zoo crew members recovering from their defeat from the Wuz-Wolf last issue, as a menacing image of the fiend looms above them in the full moonlit sky, right up against the Z building. "Creeping catnip, what hit us?" "Don't you remember, Abra? It was a wolf. It was a Wuz-Wolf. Sheesh, what a bruiser. My stars, those aren't my stars I'm seeing. Danged if I ain't got the blamedest headache. Look at all the pretty little birdies. But why are they all naked?" Hey, Captain Carrot is seeing birds just like his similarly named counterpart in the movie 6 years from now. On the next page, Captain Carrot gives a brief recap of last issue while helping Fastback get untangled from Rubberduck. Then Yankee Poodle realizes, "Wait, we're not all here. I've been saying that for months. No, where's Pig Iron?" The rest of the zoo crew start to look for him before Ali Catabra is able to conjure up an image of where Pig Iron is, recognizing it as the house of their plumber, Andy Wolf, but not knowing that he is actually the Wuz-Wolf. The image fades to show a hog-tied and naked Peter Porkchops on a kitchen table as the drooling Wuz-Wolf is seasoning him, with the zoo crew only able to look on in sheer horror. "I don't see Pig Iron, but there's the Wuz-Wolf all right. He looks even uglier than that guy Superman we met. There's a poor little piggy all tussed up, but how come? Don't you see, Zoo Crew? That monster's about to cook 'em and eat 'em." The zoo crew are fighting back from throwing up at the idea of an animal being eaten before Captain Carrot rallies them. "Anybody mind if I lose my lunch?" "Let's say we make that Wuz-Wolf lose his instead. The zoo crew to the rescue." "Hey, that rhymes. Sort of." Ali Catabra, falling back on her role as Team Transport, zaps the zoo crew to outside of Andy Wolf's house. The zoo crew wastes no time bursting in, with the captain challenging the fork-wielding Wuz-Wolf to a fight as Peter Porkchops looks on in terror with an apple shoved in his mouth. And based on a line later on in this story, I will be changing Peter Porkchops' voice a bit to differentiate from Pig Iron's. "All right, Wuz-Wolf. This is the showdown. Full moon or not, we're taking you in. Don't you stupid animals know when you're licked? We're here to stop you from licking your fingers when you've made a cannibal of yourself over that poor little pig." "My sentiments exactly. But it's not polite to talk with your mouth full." "Human or wolf, that doesn't make him a cannibal. If he was a pig, we've got a different story here." Wasting no time, a fight starts in the kitchen with some great slapstick as Rubberduck stretches out and trips the Wuz-Wolf into a pie on the table before Fastback and Yankee Poodle attack.
Ugh, lemon pie. I'm all puckered.
Well, I sure ain't gonna kiss you. Which leads to Captain Carrot decking the Wuz-Wolf, which leaves me to deal the coup de grace. Or is that coup de ville? My French is kind of rusty. Hey kids, love this golden age of Hollywood reference? But truth be told, this page does have some good banter to it, and makes good use of the surroundings. The fight is far from over as Rubberduck is struggling to keep the Wuz-Wolf tied up as Yankee Poodle keeps blasting him, and the captain keeps up the melee. He's not out yet, Cap. Maybe some animal magnetism will put away the specimen of repellent human. If it doesn't, maybe my rabbit punch will. On second thought, how about Lucky Rabbit's foot instead?
I don't see anything lucky about it. If I could just get a hold of...
After getting kicked in the face, Fastback just starts whipping dinner plates at the Wuz-Wolf. Shoot a mile! Y'all just hilarious! Next thing you know, you'll say you're seeing flying saucers. But at that, a dazed Wuz-Wolf is able to break free into the night, screaming,
As far back as I can remember, all I've ever wanted to do was sit down to have a nice dinner of roast pig, and you guys won't let me. It's not fair, I tell you. I am not an animal. I am a man.
Elephant Man reference, which a kid in the 1980s is totally gonna get. However, the zoo crew's attention is turned to the struggling naked pig on the table, none of whom recognize is Pig Iron's secret identity of Peter Porkchops, until the apple is taken out of his mouth and he has to spell it out for them. Rightfully he asks Alley Catabra to magic up some clothes so that he's not standing there with his dork hanging out, before lamenting that she couldn't restore his powers as well. Captain Carrot offers, "Here, try a few bites from one of my cosmic carrots, and see if it gives you powers like mine."
No thanks. It's not how I got my powers. How do I know I wouldn't just grow long ears and a cottontail?
That'd be bad. Peter Porkchops turns and stares out the window into the night sky and vows,
I don't know who or what this Wuz-Wolf is, but when he turned to barbecue me, he went too far. One way or another, I'm going to get my powers back and be Pig Iron. And when I do, he's going to be the sorriest wolf that ever tried to blow down anybody's house. That is an offensive stereotype.
The zoo crew make themselves a little too at home in Andy Wolf's house, pondering as to where the Wuz-Wolf is gone, and why he chose this house in particular. However, as dawn breaks, Wuz-Wolf is seen hiding out in the woods just outside his home, saying that it took him all night to recover and is ready to attack again. But it is stopped in his tracks as he transforms back into a bewildered Andy Wolf, having no clue of what has just happened. After getting his bearings, Andy Wolf enters his house, surprised to see the zoo crew there, wondering if there was a problem with the plumbing job he did. The team explains that Pig Iron had lost his powers and that a human being was going to eat him, an idea which Andy Wolf finds disgusting. However, the wolf thinks to himself, out of jealousy, that he's glad his old neighbor isn't a superhero anymore, before offering Peter to let him crash at his place, even offering to take him on as a plumber's assistant. And I do take this offer as genuine, and Peter politely rejects, wanting to try and restore his powers instead. Andy Wolf just watches, still enviously, of his likely to be repowered associate as the zoo crew make their way back to the Z building. And guys, Goldberg does a really good job of making Peter Porkchops noticeably smaller than everybody else, which really helps to illustrate how vulnerable he is compared to the usually titanic Pig Iron. Later that day, back at the Z building, Yankee Poodle in her Rova Barkett persona is recording an interview with the zoo crew about the Wuz-Wolf attack. Peter Porkchops is having to sit on Captain Carrot's lap like he's a ventriloquist dummy, which just has to be demeaning for him. Fastback needles Rova a bit. Too bad Yankee Poodle couldn't be here, huh, Rova? Which causes Rova to threaten him under her breath before switching into her Yankee Poodle persona to help with the rest of the interview. And I'm presuming that she's constantly doing this back and forth and just out of frame so the camera can't catch it. After the interview, Captain Carrot hops the tape down to a local news station to play it, hoping to get the attention of someone who might know what is going on. The news hound reluctantly accepts the interview, given that it is actual news for a change, and not just some puff piece. That evening, Dr. Sigmund Frog from last issue is watching the interview, and with the talk of Wuz-Wolves and human beings, connects the dots and calls the news station to relay his information. Captain Carrot, and I think for the first time showing a superpower that he's only talked about before, says,
"Aha! Someone is calling the TV station about the Wuz-Wolf. My super ears are picking up every syllable."
Before calling Dr. Frog himself. And Dr. Frog, possibly breaking Dr. Patient confidentiality, says he might know someone with Wuz-Wolf tendencies. And the captain takes a guess, then telling the rest of the zoo crew that his hunch was right. The zoo crew, having finally put two and two together, make their way back towards Andy Wolf's house, ready to confront the Wuz-Wolf. Meanwhile, Andy Wolf, still brewing with jealousy that Peter Porkchops might become pig iron again, is gripping his metal pentagram coin furiously as another full moon rises, transforming him back into the Wuz-Wolf and unleashing a mighty howl. While the narrator cheekily notes, "See, it's night and the Wuz-Wolf is howling. We did manage to get our story title in." The Zoo Crew arrive asking for the Wuz-Wolf to surrender peacefully, as no one actually wants to see Andy Wolf get hurt. The Wuz-Wolf is having none of it, as Alicattabra tries to restore Peter's superpowers once more in vain. "Could use a little more muscle, Peter. I'll try to zap you again back to being pig iron. Drat, when will I get Wanda under complete control? I'll turn him into something. A main course." Captain Carrot runs interference, delivering another Lucky Rabbit's foot kick to the head, but it just makes the Wuz-Wolf madder, now wanting to add rabbit stew to the course. Rubberduck lassos one of the reverse lycanthrope's legs, tripping him up and knocking him out, but only for a second, as the Wuz-Wolf pounces at the zoo crew again, telling them that they should have kept him tied up. It's time for some real teamwork again, as Yankee Poodle and Captain Carrot attack in unison, trying to weaken the Wuz-Wolf, before Fastback and Rubberduck try their hand at distraction and tying him up again. And I get the feeling that the writers didn't really know what to do with Alicattabra because she sat out in both of these fights. Unfortunately, the Wuz-Wolf grabs Rubberduck's elastic body, turning him into a slingshot, with Fastback as his ammo, launching him at the zoo crew and knocking them all out once again, as Peter Porkchops can only state in terror. "We'll make a great sling, and with this shell back as a stone, it's time Goliath beat Dave Kidd for a change."
"Oh no, he just made a quintuple play. I should have warned the guys. Wolfie was always a real hog eye with a slingshot."
And gotta say, okay, in those couple of speech balloons, there is some real good animal puns there. The Wuz-Wolf looms over Peter, drooling with hunger, mocking him that he's not pig iron and that he's ready to eat. Peter can only respond,
"You wouldn't happen to have any Geritode on you, would ya?" "Ha ha, you always did have a good sense of humor, Petey."
Peter is panicking to himself that he doesn't have a weapon and starts rummaging through the Wuz-Wolf's pockets. And while we get some picture image thought balloons of what meals the Wuz-Wolf wants to make Peter picks up Andy Wolf's middle pentagram coin and it makes him start to tingle all over. With a great page-turn reveal, we now see the Wuz-Wolf holding a back-to-full-strength pig iron under his arm. Pig iron gets free, and one punches the Wuz-Wolf out cold.
"But you wanted to cook me, burns me up, and when I'm burned up, I've been known to lose my ever-loving temper."
So once again, some shades of Ben Grimm with old Pig Iron. The rest of the zoo crew walk in on the aftermath, as Pig Iron begins giving them the lowdown. "Shades of Boris Skarloff, Peter's Pig Iron again."
"Yeah, And Wolfie's getting back to normal too.
But how? Last time the Wuz-Wolf was just as strong as you were.
Way I figure it, the lucky charm of his was made of the same steel that changed me the first time, back in Pittsburgh. So it still has some of the meteor fragment that hit me in it.
No wonder the Wuz-Wolf was resistant to my magic. Which honestly just kind of feels like the writers realized too late in the game that they left her out of all the fights in this issue. As Pig Iron continues,
Yeah, its power must have turned Wolfie into the Wuz-Wolf. And when I got away from him, it made me Pig Iron again and undid his spell. Those magic clothes Alley Cattabra conjured up even turned into my costume.
the logic for this actually really does work for me. It would make sense for Andy Wolf to have some homegrown metal keepsake, and that would power him up so long as he had it on him, and would be able to restore Pig Iron, so it does tie everything up nicely. Andy Wolf, having regained consciousness, apologizes to Pig Iron, saying that he had no idea that he was the Wuz-Wolf. Pig Iron just laughs it off, knowing that it wasn't his fault.
I'd have pulled some shady tricks on old Peter, but I didn't figure you'd want to turn him into a pig in a blanket.
And Pig Iron offers to return the coin, but Andy Wolf just rejects it, not wanting to risk turning into the Wuz-Wolf again. And that Pig Iron still might need it if he ever loses his powers again. Adding that he is through being jealous, and for the Zoo Crew to call again if they ever need a plumber. Our main story ends with Andy Wolf just smiling to himself, watching the Zoo Crew run back home and off to their next adventure. Next issue, Scott Shaw returns to chronicle the dynamic debut of Little Cheese! I have some mixed feelings on this main story. Goldberg and Gordon's art was good as always. However, Bridwell's writing does not lend itself to comedy because there are only a few good jokes here and there, and nothing that really knocked my socks off. It seemed he was more focused on the plot, which he was able to keep, and it kept it well paced, but for a comedy book, it just needed one more quick punch-up. Like, there was a lot I was just able to summarize because I didn't think there was enough there to really warrant me doing the voices. So, not the worst main story, but not my favorite either. Our backup feature, The Sinister Salamandroid, was plotted by Scott Shaw, scripted by E. Nelson Bridwell, penciled by Rick Hoberg, inked by Al Gordon, lettered by Kerry Spiegel, colored by Thomas J. Zuko, and edited by Roy Thomas. Rubberduck's Trinit Bat for a solo adventure this issue. It opens up with the malleable Mallard doing a tune-up on the Zoo Cruiser as Captain Carrot, Alley Cattabra, and Fastback all load up the Carrot Mobile for a picnic. Rubberduck waves them off, saying, "But you three have a great time. Not to stretch a point. We will, and we left plenty of food for you in the kitchen. With Pig Iron out of town, you might even get a chance to eat some of it." Rubberduck, just sweating, thinks to himself, "Great bunch of guys, but I noticed none of them offered to stay and help. I hope they enjoy it as much as I would have." As Rubberduck puts the finishing touches on the Zoo Cruiser's jet turbine, he stretches into the cockpit for a wrench, accidentally hitting the on switch. He gets sucked right on through, but comes out the other side alive, but twisted into 1,000 knots. Really have to give a shout out to Hoberg. His art on just the last page and a half is very expressive, cartoony, and kinetic. While I do like Goldberg's art, this is definitely a step above. So, after untangling himself, Rubberduck tries to relax by watching 5 sporting events all at once in the rec room, but laments. "Ho hum, guess I'm just not used to being alone. That comes of being a big star. As bed rentals, I always have somebody around, even if it's only asking for a handout." Then the narrator warns that he will not be alone for long, as we are introduced to the Salamandroid, scaling the Z building. And the Salamandroid has just an awesome design, to the point where if he showed up in a Spider-Man comic, he would not look out of place. Again, this series really works best when it is funny, but takes the characters and threats seriously as in any other superhero comic. The Salamandroid has snuck into the kitchen through the window as Rubberduck stretches his arm in to make a sandwich while still watching a boxing match in the other room. Of course, absent-mindedly hitting the Salamandroid a few times. However, Rubberduck's continued boredom is not for long because when he turns his head, he finds himself beak to snout with the Salamandroid. The foe wastes no time in introducing himself before decking the flexible fowl. And as a fan of Elongated Man, Plastic Man, and Mr. Fantastic, Hoberg does an exquisite job showing some of the stretching as Rubberduck now begins to duck and weave out of the Salamandroid's attacks.
Watch it, Buster. Keep that up and somebody could get hurt. Me, for instance.
Such is my purpose, feathered one.
Rubberduck moves on the offensive, puffing his fists up, takes a double swing at the Salamandroid, only to find his hands stuck to his skin. The foe taunts him, saying he can alter the condition of his skin, now turning it red hot as well. Unable to break away, Rubberduck improvises, lifting the Salamandroid up in the air, spinning him around like a top, before cracking his arms like a whip, getting himself free and sending the Salamandroid crashing into a wall. Looking at his smoking fist, Rubberduck asks,
Sal, old Manda, would you mind explaining why you busted in here and nearly burned the gloves off my mitts?
As the Salamandroid gets up, he explains his backstory.
I will tell all. I was created for the express purpose of revenge on you of the Zoo Crew.
Huh? Why?
Your foe, Dr. Hoot, created me in his lab while out on bail after you arrested him.
I really do like the tie into an unrelated past issue. It does help to build up the world and feels like something you would see in a superhero comic. The reptilian robot flings a hunk of debris at Rubberduck.
Your sudden move was hardly unexpected, lizard lips. But why do all you two-bit baddies talk like characters out of old comic books?
And the hero just easily trampolines it back at his attacker. Salamandroid just casually destroys the debris with a flick of his tail. Salamandroid steps ever nearer to our freaking out fowl, putting his back to the window, with a really good menacing shot of the Salamandroid's face as he gets ever closer, before sending both of them out of the window. Rubberduck warning,
Mashing through windows is dangerous. I could cut myself and bleed rubber cement all over you. Watch it! We're falling into the captain's carrot-shaped pool!
Man, did any of the architects think to honor any of the rest of the Zoo Crew? This could have been Fastback's pizza-shaped pool. While fighting underwater, the smirking Salamandroid taunts,
Now we are in my element, for I am an amphibian. I must triumph.
I suppose you think us ducks hail from the Sahara Desert.
Rubberduck points out that trying to drown him is pointless as he can just stretch his head out of the water. Unfortunately, the Salamandroid plans to boil him alive instead. Feeling the heat, Rubberduck glances up at the sun and takes a guess that that is the source of his foe's powers. Luckily, he is correct as he wraps himself up all around the Salamandroid underwater, thinking to himself,
It worked. Just like in the funny books. With yours truly wrapped up around him, he's completely helpless.
Our story ends with Captain Carrot and the other two walking in to find Rubberduck sawing logs in a recliner.
Hey, Bird, what happened to our rec room? And I do mean wreck.
Guess he got carried away watching the big fight. I declare, these movie people. All with the Salamandroid, Christmas wrapped with a note saying, do not open until Christmas 3982. Hey, I was able to find a tenuous connection for this December episode. Nice. Overall, again, I think the art in this backup is even better than the main story, but unfortunately, Bridwell still struggles to find the balance between superheroics and comedy, although the punchline at the end does work for me. Not my favorite issue of the series, but it's totally serviceable. Reading these last two issues back to back, I think helps a lot, and hopefully maybe DC will get a DC Finest or a compendium out soon. And with that, let's get on to our Looney Tunes pairing. Bye Bye Bluebeard was originally released October 21st, 1949. This short was directed by Arthur Davis, story by Sid Marcus, produced by Edward Seltzer, starring Mel Blanc, music by Carl Stalling, animation by Basil Davidovich, J.C. Melendez, Don Williams, and Emery Hawkins. Layouts by Don Smith, and backgrounds by Philip DeGard. I thought about this short briefly for last episode, but I always thought Bluebeard was a line until I was surfing around the Looney Tunes wiki last night, and that informed me otherwise. Again, I think Porky is underrated, and I always remember this short as one of the creepier ones, with Porky being hog-tied and about to be eaten at the end, which definitely fits in with the main story from issue 11 with the Wuz-Wolf and Peter Porkchops. And while the director Davis is not a name like Jones, Freeling, Clampett, etc., I still think he does good work here, even if this would be his last short due to budget cuts at Warner Brothers. And the title of this short is a pun on the song Bye Bye Blackbird, a snippet of which can be heard over the title card. The short opens with Porky listening to the radio, at first looking like he's about to exercise, but is in fact about to eat a huge meal, which includes sausages? See, that makes him a cannibal. A mouse sneaks around on the table to try and eat some of the food, but accidentally makes a sandwich out of Porky's finger. After being bitten, Porky chases the mouse back to his hole, throwing about a dozen butcher knives at him. There is a break in the radio show to announce that the Russian serial killer Bluebeard has broken out of jail and is at large. Porky panics and starts barring and locking up his rather spiffy post-war house. The mouse tries to use this situation to his advantage by dressing up as Bluebeard and threatens Porky with some menacing Mel Blanc laughs and a knife, splitting a hair to show Porky just how sharp it really is. Porky starts feeding the mouse, but on his way back to grab some wine, the radio gives a description of Bluebeard being 6 feet 11 inches. Porky knows he just got, so he grabs a ruler and sees that Bluebeard is only 3 inches high. The mouse tries again to threaten Porky with some laughs, but to no avail. Now chasing the mouse with a meat cleaver, Porky starts hacking at his kitchen table before spotting what he thinks is the mouse's fake beard. He starts pulling at it to force the mouse out, but it turns out to be the real Bluebeard, who at some point got into the house and hid under the table. Porky is oblivious to this until he sees that the mouse is in front of him, who points behind him and sees Bluebeard standing up with a ruler demonstrating that he is indeed 6 feet 11 inches tall. Porky turns stark white and faints. Bluebeard then straps Porky to a rocket pointed out the window while he goes to eat his food. The mouse, still dressed like Bluebeard, tries to eat some of the food as well. When Bluebeard asks who he is, the mouse sarcastically replies that he is his conscience. Bluebeard then asks, "What are you doing on outside?" And tries to eat the mouse. The mouse is able to escape, but douses himself with hot sauce just in case, as Bluebeard catches him again, and uses the burning sensation to free himself once more. Bluebeard gives chase, but the mouse just repeatedly hits him with pies, and at one point shoves his beard into the toaster before being able to get back into his hole. While all of this is going on, Porky is frantically trying to blow the rocket fuse out before successfully being able to pull it out. Bluebeard turns his attention back to Porky and hog-ties him while he builds a guillotine to kill him and presumably eat him. The scene of Porky screaming his head off while hogtied and seeing the guillotine is not used for comedy at all, and I mean that as a compliment. The mouse, watching this, paces back and forth before flipping a coin to see if he should help. The mouse is then quickly able to trick Bluebeard into eating some bombs, which he mistakes for popovers. Bluebeard sees the smoke emitting from his mouth, rushes to the medicine cabinet to try and mix something to try and save himself. But the bombs explode before he can take a drink, killing him. Unlike most Looney Tunes shorts, he's just dead. There's no angel wings or gates to hell opening up for Bluebeard. He is just dead. And the short ends with Porky now gladly sharing his food with the mouse who saved his life. Davis and crew do some really good work here. The short is funny and well-paced, and it is a shame that this was their last outing. What I really like about this short is that Bluebeard is not funny. He is a threat. For a one-off villain, this does help him be more noteworthy. And while slapstick happens to him, there's nothing in this short that makes him laughable. Elmer Fudd? Funny. Yosemite Sam? Funny. Tasmanian Devil? Funny. Bluebeard might as well be Jason Voorhees. And also, Porky, despite being our hero, never has the upper hand on the situation. He is always the victim on this short. And it just makes it creepy as all get out. And if I were to ever direct a Looney Tunes Halloween special, I am using Bluebeard before anyone else. So if you have not seen the short, I highly recommend seeking it out. And I got nothing left to say, but that's all, folks!